Hi, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Diagnosis, a monthly series by the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Association of Endometriosis, Adenomyosis, and PCOS Inc., where we explore women's health beyond the label. So, my name is Ms. Kimmette Robertson, and I am the Vice President of the organization, and I would be your host for today. I'm joined by my lovely colleagues here, other members of the association. And so we're just going to do a bit of introduction, letting you know who we are and showing you the faces of the SVGAEAP. So without further ado, let's get into today's conversation. So we could start with our president, our president and founder, Miss Odelia Thomas. So Odelia, tell us a bit about who you are for those who don't know.
I thoroughly enjoy working with people, women and young girls in particular, but in general, I work with youth and women. And of course, that would include sometimes you have to involve the men and boys that are in their lives. So that's what I do, and that's what I enjoy doing.
So thank you for sharing that, Odelia. And, I could see that passion and that enjoyment coming through because, we have this organization in place, right? So that's a good segue into our next question, which is
Mhm.
actually what inspired you to start this organization?
I remember being diagnosed with endometriosis, and I had never heard the word before. I couldn't spell it, I couldn't pronounce it. And I started sharing with my friends about my experience and the diagnosis. And so I decided to start with a blog to share it with other people. And I remember the first installment, it was supposed to be about my story. And I wrote it, but I was so fearful of the judgment and of what people would say that I was very clinical in the way that I wrote it. And I remember sending the first draft to Roselle, who we will meet later. And she sent it back with a note that this wasn't it. This was too clinical, there's not enough heart. Tell the story, spread information. And another aspect of it, I wanted healthcare providers to be more compassionate when they are working with women. So that is what led to the organization, started sharing in 2017. And then in 2021, we became a registered nonprofit. We are still very small, a very small group of us, just 9 of us, hoping that, as we grow, we'll be able to take on members and have membership and a bigger group with which to do more work. But that was the foundation or the starting point of the organization.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Odelia. And I'm hearing so much background and so much history to the organization, right? Some of the things that I took away from what you were saying, the need or the gap that was there with regards to information and the fact that this knowledge or this type of information was not out there, right? And that was your lived experience, and they didn't want any other woman to go through that kind of experience. I heard as well, a more client-centered and comforting, caring kind of approach to supporting clients and to
Yes.
helping clients within the healthcare system. So these are some of the gaps I assume that you were hoping
Yes.
to fill, and I could see that through the work you are achieving that. So my next question would be, you talk about the team just being about 9 persons, right? So what are some of the challenges? I mean, we know how, right? But if you could just share what some of the challenges are with regards to, the organization, with regards to operations, anything that you could share with us.
The lack of resources is our biggest challenge. I can start with the financial resources. We don't have any. Um, but in the last 2 years, we have been fortunate to have some two short-term projects with Cuso International funded by the government of Canada. In 2024, we were able to have two conferences, the Empower Her Wellness Conferences, teen edition and a women's edition, where we were able with the teens to talk about menstruation and self-confidence and topics that relate to young people, including social media and their body image and how they see themselves, and talking about their future. and how to get from where they are to where they want to be. And with the Women's Conference, we were able to bring in doctors and nurses to come and speak to women about endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids, menopause. And we also talked about infertility and miscarriages at that conference. And then in 2025, we had another short term project with them where we were able to do some educational sessions across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We went down to Beckway, to Canawan, and we went to the north of the island. So we went to Sandy Bay and we went to Rosebank, and we had sessions also in Vermont and in Annesvale. And so we were able to take the knowledge and the education from just having a conference in town out into communities where we were able to have husbands and sons and brothers coming out to the sessions as well to learn more about what these conditions are. And we also again targeted both youth and adults. And with the youth, we talked about menstruation and knowing your bodies and signs to look out for that something may be wrong with your period. So, in addition to the educational sessions, we're able to produce a mini documentary following the lives of Vincentian women who have been diagnosed with these conditions, as well as having a doctor, a medical doctor, and a psychologist sharing about the mental health impact of these conditions on a woman's life. And we're able to produce some knowledge products in the form of pamphlets, educational pamphlets on the conditions, one on infertility and miscarriage, and one targeted specifically for youth, where we talked about sexual and reproductive health. And so we were able to have those projects. They've come to an end now. And so we are back to using our limited resources, but what we do have is good partnerships. We've been able to build good, strong relationships with other non-governmental organizations, churches, youth groups, community groups. And so they will invite us to come and conduct sessions with their audiences, and we've been able to take our educational sessions further. And another challenge that we have still is stigma. There's still a lot of stigma related to women's health. And just talking about your experience of infertility, or you have fibroids, or PCOS, or endometriosis, or adenomyosis, people are like, why are you sharing such a personal story? But I always believe, as a Caribbean woman, as a Vincentian woman, storytelling is the way we get messages across. And without stories, people don't see themselves. They don't get to understand just the medical jargon. And I think storytelling is a powerful tool in which to get information across. And so stigma, because people like, don't talk about it. If you're experiencing certain things, keep that to yourself. Why you talking about that? Nobody needs to know your business. But it's not about knowing my business or anybody's business. It's about being able to see yourself in that story. It's about trying to raise empathy in our people towards women and girls who are living with these conditions. So we still do have some issues with stigma, and it keeps women from wanting to come forward. So they will meet you in a store and whisper to you, "Oh, I saw you talking about it, and I have that thing too, but I don't want anybody to know." And they want to participate, but they're so scared of what people will say and what people might do and how people will treat them if they only know that this is what they're experiencing. So I think those two are two of our major challenges that we're facing right
I could, see what you're talking about when you mentioned the financial resources, because, with nonprofits, and especially now with the whole climate,
now.
everything
Yes.
that's happening, the landscape right now with getting funding, everything has to be kind of like intersectional now,
Yeah.
and they're cracking down on this kind of thing. So I could see where you're coming from with regards to the
Yeah.
funding, especially since we saw donor reliance, right?
Yes.
Majority of our funding comes from donors.
Mm-hmm.
And with the stigma, we are Caribbean people, it's kind of taboo to be talking about
Yes.
periods and menstruation and all of these things. So I could see like that need for persons to not share beyond the household what
Yes.
they're experiencing. That could be something that, you know, I could hear and I could see that. But I think what you mentioned with storytelling, that's something that's so very important because that's a really good way to connect with persons. I think it allows them to see you, to be more, for you to be more relatable. And on that scale, you know, it breaks down some of the barriers,
Mm-hmm.
right, to the storytelling. So I
Yeah.
think those are some powerful things that you shared as well. And so my last question is, you talked about a lot, right? You've done, we've done a lot in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is your long-term vision for the organization?
I have a lot of dreams and hopes and wishes. I think the first one would be to expand the team so that we have help and more persons to help take the vision forward. So expanding the team is number one. And number two, I want us to continue to create a more empathetic nation. Have people be more understanding of the needs of women living with these conditions and not just people, healthcare providers, workplaces, government officials. I would love to see some policy decisions being made about workplace accommodations and the way that women with these conditions are treated at the hospital. So, for an example, because of the various conditions that I had, when I had my hysterectomy, I was placed on the maternity ward. So imagine you're a woman in your 30s having a hysterectomy, losing your ability to have children, biological children that is, and you are on the maternity ward surrounded by pregnant women and women who just had their babies. I would love to see a policy change in that just because it's a hysterectomy doesn't mean I need to be on the maternity ward because it's a woman's condition. I would love to see a separate room or a whole ward may not be possible, but at least a separate room where women who have to have hysterectomies or women who've experienced miscarriages and stillbirths and so on can be placed away so that it doesn't impact their mental health. That's just one example of a policy decision I would love to see happen. And also, I am looking forward to us having in-person support groups. That's that's a vision that I have. It's on the horizon, and I would want for it to be in our long-term future as well. I'm looking forward to it materializing and continuing daily. So we will be having two support groups, one for women living with the conditions and another one for women who are experiencing infertility and miscarriage. And that one is run by Roselle, and she can talk more about it when we get to her. But we are really just very hopeful for the future and hoping that all of these things that we have in our minds and started putting on paper will come to fruition.
And I believe that there would be. I mean, we've done so much work before, and we could only continue to do great work, right? So thank you so much for that, Odelia. Okay, so we have with us now Miss Roselle Solomon, right? And she's just going to introduce herself to you, tell us a bit about who she is, you know, what skills she brings to the organization, just so you know about this phase of the SVGAEAP.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
My name is Roselle Solomon. I am a trained social worker. I have been in the field for 20 plus years.
Okay.
And so for me, what I think I bring is a level of insight. I think or I know, I should say, I am a cheerleader. I'm a supporter. And I also, the idea of being just in spaces. I remember as a child, I got an award on Brown Cap. It was about being an all rounder. And it has stuck with me even into adulthood that I'm not specifically attached all the time to one thing. I broaden my horizon, sorry, and I'm able to insert myself into different areas. And that's where I'm able to one grow and to give back into that particular space. So I think I'm able to see different perspectives, show different perspectives, and how we put all of that together. I think that's, my level of skill. Obviously, there are other things. Being a social worker, you're a mediator, you're able to analyze things, you're a social scientist. And as of late, I am really stepping into labeling what I do as being a psychosocial practitioner because I'm not only a social worker, I'm into the field because of my particular job in counseling. So being a psychosocial practitioner is being able to spread my wings a little bit wider. I am tapped into as many different things as possible. And in this space, I'm here with Shiz, being this current secretary.
Okay. All right. So I heard a lot of different things. So
Yes.
you wear many hats, right? Pretty
Yes.
much, right? So you're a trained social worker, you're a psychosocial practitioner, and one of the other things that I heard from you is that you're very versatile, right? And I think that flexibility is definitely important, especially in the kind of work that we do,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
with us, right? Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is that because people think it's, sexual and reproductive, that's a sphere, it can be tapped into so many other areas.
That's true.
And so the ability to be, as you mentioned, flexible in this particular space, the world right about now is moving into different areas of AI, etc., etc. And we have to learn to pivot.
Yeah.
Even if we're talking just about, women, as mentioned, in the previous episode, sorry, you have men and boys.
Yeah.
You have different systems that are in place. And if we're not able to match and meet those particular needs, how can we get ourselves into those spaces? So no matter what we do, it's always good for the organization or an individual or all of us to be flexible and versatile because as the organization grows, we ourselves have to grow too. So we have to tap into and mobilize and enrich our own skill set so that we are able to be effective in what we do and for us to grow and for us to really make a more meaningful impact in this particular sphere.
That's so very true. Thank you for pointing that
No.
out. I mean, like today, I heard someone say, change is the only thing that is basically constant, right?
Only thing
And so,
constant.
especially for an organization that is based on social impact, we have to ensure that we are up to the times, that we are
Yes.
consistently
Yes.
evolving and
Yes.
equipping ourselves in a way that we could best serve the community and the people that we work with, the
Yes.
women, the girls, you know.
Yeah.
So very well said. So my next question is, what are some of the lessons that you have learned through your work with the SVGAEAP?
What I've learned is be versatile. Even though you're doing it, sometimes you're doing something, and it's not until like somebody kind of, somebody says, "Hey, you're this or you're that." Because sometimes you're doing it, you're being insightful, you're connecting dots, and you're seeing things from different perspective. But in your daily movement, you're not seeing that.
Yeah.
So it's good to reflect, and it's good to be amongst people that help you be reflective, right? So when you're among peers and we are able to sit and analyze what we do, then we're analyzing ourselves as well.
Yeah.
So I do think that, being able to be versatile, I think I've grown into to pronounce analysis. You need to be quite quite a challenge. And so not just that, but understanding what it is, understanding what endometriosis is, and all the other conditions that really adversely, painfully, every day affect a lot of women and girls in this very, very so being able to widen my understanding and use this information into my other spaces. Because no matter where you go, you're going to find girls, you're going to find men.
And so, as mentioned before, it's sexuality.
Yeah.
You know, we don't exist in isolation and with no man's an island. So we all take pieces of us where we go. So to be able to have the information, to be comfortable with the information, and to be able to insert that information, I think lesson learned is to be able to grow, be flexible, gain more knowledge, be more insightful, and just it's maybe weird to say have fun with it, but if you're not happy with what you're doing, then are you doing it correctly?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. When you talk about growth and flexibility and all of these things, and I think one of the things that really stood out to me with what you said is like that ability to be open enough to learn,
Yeah.
right? And to want to grow, to want to widen your understanding of things. And I think this is so very important because we're talking about topics like you mentioned, adenomyosis, right?
Yes.
And it's such a long word.
Yes.
And to be able to, say what it is and to be able to explain what it is, that's
Yes.
something that's so important.
Very important.
So I think my next question to you, as someone who is versed in social work, as someone who has that um, psychosocial practitioner experience, my next question is, what advice would you give to young people who are interested in doing like advocacy and community work? Anything you'd like to say to them? What tips would you give to them?
What tips? People are of the opinion that you need to be extremely passionate to start or be a part of something. It's not necessarily the case. We live, we exist. Just do something. Get involved. No matter where you are, what you're, just get involved. Whether it is in an association that speaks about, the taboo, the hard topics, or simply if you're in a basket leave, I mean, just be involved. When you get involved, you see the gaps because no matter where you go, you're going to meet people. With people come issues. And there's going to be that time when your lived experience crosses with a gap. And so where do you go from there? It will stay on your brain. You will feel uneasy and you have to think about it. And so just get involved, be in spaces. In some households, people feel really insecure about themselves and have this idea of being an imposter. I don't belong anywhere. My ideas are ridiculous. I am not this, I am not that. We are setting ourselves up for failure. And so just go, do, be a part, insert yourself, get uncomfortable. Because initially, I know all of this from Odelia, right? And it wasn't pleasant at first. It still isn't pleasant. And so with my other experiences, and she mentioned before that I did start a support group for women with infertility and suffering miscarriages, etc. And that came out of a need. And so you never know what is going to spawn up with people. And so just be uncomfortable, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
So good.
Because that's how change is made. And so no matter where you are, how old you are, never stop speaking up. And for the adults who are in charge of the little girls, in charge of teenagers, please stop silencing children. When we silence them, then we are actually we are delaying their ability to speak. We are delaying the baseline of advocacy.
That's true.
And so if we need a nation of advocates, let's start giving our young people a voice. So my advice is give people a voice. So young people, women, men, whoever, no matter what, just step in, be uncomfortable, lend your voice, grow. Just be a part of it.
I think those are really, really great tips, Roselle. Hats off to you for that. No, really, because it's really, really interesting what you said. Like we tend to have that thought process that it must come from a place of passion. And while acknowledging that passion is important, just kind of like thrusting yourself headfirst in and getting involved, that is where you interact with people.
Yeah.
That is where you see what needs or
Yeah.
what gaps actually
Yeah.
are out there and how best you could fill these gaps based on, what skills, what you have to offer
Yeah.
as a young person. And one of the other important takeaways that I got from that, with regards to like silencing, and that link to if it is that persons are being silenced, how do we get advocates? Because you must first stand up and speak out about something, that you care about.
Yeah.
And so that is something that is very, very important. And I want to also encourage persons, stop silencing, because then we won't have any more advocates, right?
Exactly.
And we need the advocates.
We need that.
We definitely need the advocates. Thank you so much,
Thanks for
Roselle.
having me.
So, you talked about your support group.
Yes.
Could you just tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, then. So, Full of Grace, much thought into the name, hemmed and hawed over it, and stayed on Full of Grace. At the end of the day, the idea of losing a child, of having a pregnancy end, and all of the emotional, physical, medical issues, things that happens to a woman during that state. I do think that there is a space for it in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If we are to modernize and build our nation, these are the little pieces, puzzle pieces that our country needs. And the women in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they do need it. Again, it's stigmatized. Um, Everybody thinks that a woman has to will have a child. So when a woman loses a child, she feels as if she's let herself down. Her body has let herself down. She's let down her husband, let down her boyfriend, let down her family. And so support is always needed in all these areas. And so Full of Grace, we're hoping when everything is launched. It had been around, but because people are still trying to get comfortable with the idea of in-person support groups.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping that when we fully and formally launch Full of Grace, that individuals can feel a sense of safety and security so that they'll be able to step forward and be in a space with other women who have lived through particular experience.
And thank you for sharing that. I think, a resource like that or a platform like that is so very important
Yeah.
because, as you mentioned, we don't have that many healing spaces
Yeah.
for women, especially who are going through, infertility or miscarriages. And so something like that, a support group that would help to empower and just be there for women. I think that's a great thing. So everyone listen out for Full of Grace. No problem. Again, Roselle, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here with us and
Yes.
for talking to us about the role that you play
Yes.
in the SVGAEAP. Yes, thank you so much. All right, so right now we have with us another vice president of the association, Miss Alysia J. Dagrosa. Welcome, Alysia.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Alyssa handles a lot of our like diaspora engagements. She's based in the US, particularly New York. And so just for her to give us a bit about, who she is or what she does.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my name is Alysia Dagrosa. I am in Brooklyn, born and bred, but my mother is obviously Vincentian. And that is part of why I am in this organization. My background is I'm a board certified patient advocate. Focusing on endometriosis. I do a lot of work with thoracic endometriosis as well. My additional credentials include I am a certified full spectrum doula. I work here in New York with the Citywide Doula Initiative, which is paid for by New York City, and we provide free doula services for low income moms, young moms, high risk moms. I kind of focus on the high risk moms. those who have conditions like endometriosis, fibroids, and the like. Right now, I'm really focusing more on doula support. So I'm mentoring the apprentice doulas and teaching them all the ways and how to best support women with these kinds of conditions who are high risk as a result. In regards to my work with the organization, I got in touch with Odelia, oddly enough, because of the volcano erupting, because of Spray erupting. I'd seen her speak in a panel. They had representatives from each island, and then when I saw that someone was going to be there from St. Vincent, I was like super excited. That's why I had tuned in. And so that was my first experience of seeing Odelia speak, and then, the eruption happened not too long after, um, and there was a space for Vincies, like a safe space to speak, whether they were here or on the island, about their experiences and how the eruption was affecting them. And ever since, we've kind of been inseparable since. So yeah, I find this work important because my mother also has endometriosis. We believe that her aunt as well probably had endometriosis. She showed all of the symptoms. We just didn't have a name for what she was experiencing. And both women experienced a lot of trouble. Getting access to care, and being believed that their issues were real, and how to treat them and how to manage that. And again, the stigma, they weren't really able to speak out about these kinds of things, both in St. Vincent and then when they moved abroad as well. My great aunt moving to Canada, and then my mother obviously moving here to the US. And just how despite your location, um, you can run into very, very similar challenges. And when I first started being an endometriosis advocate, I wasn't exactly sure where my place was in the community yet. And then I just kind of fell in quite perfectly with this organization. And I'm really grateful to be able to affect change not only at home, but here in New York as well.
That's great, Liz. Thank you so much for the introduction. And we see that you've been putting in a lot of work and effort, and we appreciate you. Just wanted to really say that we do appreciate you. Right. So, just a little question. If you could describe the SVGAEAP in 3 words, what words would you use?
3 words. That is so hard. Okay. I'm gonna start with powerful because our voices are powerful, and through our voices, we are already affecting change. Um, Next, compassion. We are creating spaces where people can feel comfortable to share about their experiences, places where they don't have to feel alone, places where they can feel supported and understood. So powerful, compassion, and last, I would have to say change. I'll go with change. I'll go with change because we are affecting change, and we are doing so every single day. And we're still a small organization, but we started even smaller, and I'm seeing the growth in us every single day, and we are getting more and more opportunities to speak out, to help, to improve the quality and access to care, quality and access to resources. The work that we are doing to educate not only patients and medical providers is f- um, flowing over into the policy reform arena as well, and people are taking notice of our work. And it's really just the beginning, and I feel there's so much more to come, and it's a very, very exciting time for us.
Very true. And very well said, Liz. So powerful, compassionate and change, right? Or compassion and change. Very good words. So I think my next question is, you manage a lot of our partnerships and stakeholder engagement, particularly in the US. So for you, what has been like the most rewarding experience that you've had so far?
The most rewarding. Um, I I really do enjoy making connections and bringing people together. Um, and West Indians, Caribbeans, whether they're living home or elsewhere, we are so tied to our home, and being able to bring medical professionals, mental health workers, advocates from the West Indian diaspora, whether they're Vinci or Trini or wherever, from the US, and being able to connect them with their roots has been incredibly rewarding, because there are why not harness the power of the diaspora? And I'm more than excited and more than happy to be able to facilitate that.
Thank you so much for that. So we're hearing like there's a lot that's out there in the diaspora, and persons are willing to give back and to support and to find a way to connect to home and to see that change happen, or to help to be a part of the impact that is happening back home, right? So that is also very important. So I think my next question for you is, what makes the organization or the association, what makes us unique from, all of those others that are in the US or within the region? What do you think makes us unique?
What makes us unique? We're an incredibly dynamic organization. We have a lot. Our executive board is a wealth of knowledge, and we all have different talents and skill sets that we bring to the table. And I just feel like we are very dynamic. We don't just stick to one method of advocacy. We really branch out into lots of different arenas, and I feel that's really kind of what sets us apart.
That's true. Okay. So, Liz, anything else you want to share with us, or any advice that you would want to give for persons who are maybe in the diaspora and want to, tap back into home, who want to support?
Yeah, absolutely. I whenever people reach out to me or I reach out to them, they're so excited to have the opportunity, because there are a lot of people here in the States, especially when I tap into resources that are outside of New York, because the West Indian communities are significantly smaller outside of New York City, outside of our metropolitan area. And these people are really chomping at the bit. They've always wanted to be more involved, and they've just not been able to figure out a way to do it. And so I always say my DMs are open. If you see us and you want to get more involved with us, reach out. I don't bite, I promise.
Good one. And thank you so much, Liz, for taking time out of, we know your busy schedule, to be with us and to just share a bit about who you are, the role that you play in the organization as we try to reflect the faces of the SVGAEAP. Thank you so much, Liz.
You.
So we have switched places, and I will be interviewing Moureeze today. So Moureeze is our legal officer, and we invite her to share a little bit about herself. So Moureeze, tell us, who is Moureeze, and what skills do you bring to the organization?
Well, I think you've already done that job for me. As you would have said, I am the legal officer, so by profession, I'm a lawyer, and I have been volunteering for basically my entire life. So I think I also bring that level of expertise to the organization.
Yes. Thank you, Moureeze. So my next question to you is, what makes you want to be a part of this organization? Bearing in mind you've been volunteering for all your life, so why this organization?
Well, you're the reason why I met you, and I thought, oh my, I really need to figure out how I can help you share and build and grow your mission. And I was honored that you asked me to join, especially because I don't personally suffer from any of the conditions, but I do think it's important to think of yourself as your sister's keeper and somebody that could support other women in their endeavors.
We were talking earlier about empathy and how one of the things that we want to see happen in our country is more empathy towards women and girls living with these conditions. And I think you're a perfect example of empathy. Um, you are such a safe space for me and I'm sure for others. And I think that is one of the things you also bring to the organization, not just your experience in being a volunteer or your experience as a lawyer, but the empathy and the kindness with which you treat other people. And Moureeze is excellent with working with the teens and young adults that we do our sessions with. Um, so I think you also bring that as well to the organization. So what has been the most rewarding part so far of being a part of the executive?
I think definitely what you just said. It's like the work is its own reward because sometimes we don't feel as motivated, and then seeing the impacts and seeing it in real time, it helps to sort of give me that extra burst of energy that I might need to continue volunteering or to continue giving to the cause.
I like that. Is there a project or an initiative or something you've done so far that you're proud of?
I am most proud of the documentary. I was so excited at the prospect because I love the merging of my two of my interest areas. I love like local culture and I love that, oh my, okay, so this nonprofit that I'm in, they're going to share their story and we're going to share it locally at the film festival. I'm so excited about that.
So I think I choose that if I was asked that question too. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it showing at the film festival too. Yeah. So what from your work with the association?
I think maybe the biggest lesson that I've learned is the extent of the struggle that women experience without necessarily communicating it or it being something that everybody's aware of because okay, the women aren't necessarily complaining every day or complaining as much as you would think that somebody who's experiencing this level of pain, this level of just disruption of your ability to carry out your everyday functions should be.
That's a good one. You know, so many women walk around, and I call it suffering in silence because of the stigma still attached to a lot of these conditions and the experiences. And so the invisibleness of these, I mean, it's not a word, but I'm making it up. The invisibleness of these conditions, because you can't look at me and say I have endometriosis. You can't look at a woman and say, hey, she might have PCOS. You can't see for some and some you just can't tell. And so, because people can't see that you have an illness, they are, I say, not as kind as they should be. And so, while you can't see it, doesn't mean that people are not experiencing difficulty.
And that you shouldn't give them any grace that they might ask for, any time off, or just
Yeah,
some consideration.
yeah, yeah. And my last question to you is, what advice would you give to young people who are thinking of getting into advocacy work? What would you say to them? What tips would you give to them if they're considering wanting to be volunteers? And I think that's something that we are losing our sense of volunteerism in not just the region, but I've realized, worldwide, people don't want to volunteer, they want to be paid and so on. But if there are young people who are thinking about it, or even if they're not thinking about it, what would you say to them?
I love that you asked about young people because my thing about it is, as a young person, your goal is to acquire skills, and you might not necessarily be able to acquire those skills at school or socially or otherwise. And for me personally, volunteering has been so enriching. I have learned so many skills. This isn't my first time sitting on a program. It's not your first time learning how to coordinate an event. These are skills that can translate over into your earning capacity, into the money that you want. So I think I would encourage them to look around for a cause that they themselves are either affected by or find themselves passionate about. So everybody knows, I'm woman first. I'm about the girl. And so that's my North Star. But you just need to find your own and then you could go from there.
I like that. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Moureeze, for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more. So thank you, Moureeze. And now we going to move over to Kimmette, our first host of our program today. And we want to get to know a little bit more about Kimmette. So Kimmette is one of our vice presidents, and we would love for her to introduce herself and tell us who she is and why she is a part of this association. So welcome, Kimmette.
Thank you for that. So, I'm Kimmette again, and I dub myself a social entrepreneur. New title, very new title, and I took the leap of faith and went into entrepreneurship. So a lot of my work is focused on like health and wellness, particularly women's health. Being vice president of this organization, but also like mental health. And then I'm also very big on like sustainability and the circular economy. So there's another like eco-conscious brand or enterprise. So that's just, the iceberg or the tip of the iceberg in terms of what I am and who I am, right? In terms of why I got interested in this organization. So I think it goes way, way, way back for both of us. For me, like I remember when you got diagnosed and you sharing your story with me. And, I was there to support you. And that was something that brought us closer to each other. And I was able to show empathy in that moment, being a really good friend and stepping in when you needed that support and so forth, and just, helping in the ways that I could. But I think it hit even harder when I was diagnosed myself and getting or having that diagnosis, you now have that lived personal experience. And so it's not until I was like put in that place that I fully understood, exactly what it takes to have that diagnosis. You go through the full range of emotions, and I think that helped me to connect with you even more, and that is where I became really, really down for advocating and supporting any way that I knew how, and just being there because I didn't really want anybody else to have to go through the kind of experiences that we went through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Why do you think it was important that we created this platform here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
So I'm gonna, go back to what you were saying in the beginning. I think it's very, very important to have this kind of platform because, just taking it from our own experience, when we were going through it, like there was not that much information that we had or not many resources that we could turn to. We basically had each other,
Yeah.
families, and like the other people that we told within our circle. And that was a bit isolating. Even though we had each other, it was still a bit isolating for us. And I think, when we talked about, making this formal and official, that is when I realized, just how important it is to have something in writing, to have that platform for women and girls to be able to tap into so that they could navigate the healthcare system, so that they could have the information that they need to understand these conditions. If it is that they're diagnosed with one of the conditions, or if it is that they know someone who is diagnosed with the conditions. And I think that is what reflects really, why it's important to have this kind of space, why it's important for us to, be advocating and having this platform, because I really think it's building that sense of community so that women know that they belong, so that they know that they are not alone in this.
Yeah.
We have each other, we form this sisterhood, and I think that is something that I'm really, really grateful for, proud of, and I think, needs to continue.
Yeah.
We need to continue amplifying these voices.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything to add to that. It was well said. It was well said. So in your role as one of the vice presidents, what is your work in the overall mission of the organization? What do you do to help move the mission forward?
Okay, so overall our mission is to drive change. That's one of the things we're really big on, the social impact. And so trickling down from that, we have like our awareness, right? Building awareness, we have providing support, and we have ensuring that there's access to treatment. So for me, as I said, I'm an entrepreneur, but I wear like many different hats. So I'm kind of like, when Roselle said she's flexible and
Yes,
she's
versatile.
versatile, that's me, right? I'm hopping here, there, not everywhere, but here, there, right? And so, for me, I think like how I support the cause or how I contribute to this cause. I have experience in like project management and proposal writing and things of that nature. So like just, looking out for what calls are out there and, putting in that work to write the proposals for the cause. That is one way that I support. I provide support for like when we do strategic planning for how we want to outline the full year of activities. It's women's health, but we are connected to so many different things. And, just being able to identify what are the observance days and how best we could, be a part of that so that we could reach the members within our community, the people that we serve, but also, so that we could have that communication, that online presence, that visibility out there when it comes to these things. Another way that I provide support is through like the creative process, I would say. So like how we're doing this session right now, I provided support with the documentary as well, and just a few other like creative things, and just like the coordination and support. It's a lot.
Yes, I think I would dub Kimmette as our logistics person. She does a lot of the coordination of things, and the two projects that we spoke about earlier, from 2024 and 2025 with Kusa International. Kimmette was the person who was instrumental in writing the project proposals and helping us to be successful in obtaining the funding because of how she wrote up these projects that really emphasize why we need to be doing this educational drive, why we need to go into the communities and meet the people where they are. So for that, I want to say thank you. What moments that we've experienced so far that made you think, okay, this work is worthwhile, it's doing something, it's making an impact? What would you say was that one defining moment for
I
you?
have to choose what?
Yes, only one.
Um, can I do it as like a transition? Because for me, I'll be short. I promise.
Okay.
I won't be long-winded. So, for me, I think like when we just started doing work, it was more like having the woman come to us after, and saying, this is something that resonates with me. This is something that I experienced, but I've been a bit afraid to share that story, so thank you for being candid. So it started off with that, right? Just those more intimate type of meetings or discussions after our educational sessions. And more recently, I think one of the things that I realized we really have impact with is, when we did the Empower Her conference, and then like so many girls came out, so many women came out for that. Like that just gave me goosebumps. And just having them be vocal about it within that safe space, that is when like I started to see, okay, we're really getting some traction with this. We're really touching persons and connecting with persons. And more recently, it's been the documentary. I'm so excited about the documentary. right? But we put our heart and our soul into the documentary, and I think what really hit home for me was when we actually got that outpouring of love when we put our stories out there. Like we've been through it. You mentioned like the lack of financial resources, so that's one of the challenges that we've had. But I think like just being able to have that product and to put it out there and to have it touch so many people and get that positive energy and that outpouring of love and so much persons who said to us like, I've seen documentaries on this before, but this is like for colored people. This is for me. This is
Yeah.
ours, and we are Caribbean women. We are 1 in 10 women. So I think that is where I really saw the impact, and I felt very, proud to be a part of this movement, and I felt really honored to, just be there to share our story.
Yeah. Okay. I see it. So you didn't choose one moment, but I think they were all important to talk about. And now that you've said that, what would you say is the thing happening behind the scenes to make the work happen? So behind the scenes of the documentary educational sessions that people don't realize goes on in order to make what they see happen.
Right. So I think like a lot of times we see the finished product, right? And if it's like beautifully designed, if it's well presented, we think like, okay, yeah, that was easy peasy. But the amount, as you say, that goes into the logistics, right? The coordination, the planning, the like brainstorming that we have to do as a group, the discussions, the back and forth, it takes a lot. And I think people don't realize, how much it takes to put in to these kind of activities and events so that we could show up as our best selves, so that we could show up to be there for those who, count on us and who need that support. So I think that is one thing. Not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just something, to be like mindful of the amount of planning and coordination and engagements and discussions that goes into it. And I think another thing would be like the courage it takes to be the domino, right? And when I say that, I mean like for you in your case,
Hmm.
like it took a lot of courage,
Yeah.
a lot, because like 10 decades ago, when you shared your story, I mean, like endometriosis wasn't something that people were talking about. So, from your perspective, from my perspective, Roselle's, Liz, Moureeze, all of our perspectives, and the other women who and girls who are experiencing it. I think it takes a lot of courage for us to show up
Yeah.
at these events and for us to be very candid about our experiences, because again we live in a society where you shouldn't talk your business, and you shouldn't share what is
Yeah.
happening with you, especially when you're talking about like menstruation, when you're talking about how this affects like intimacy and things like that. So I think that is also something that persons don't necessarily see, the amount of
Mm.
courage that it takes for us to show up and to be there and to support.
Yeah. That's true. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I think that we put in a lot of work. For women, all of us, we all have full-time jobs, as I was saying earlier, and we are all in other organizations, especially Moureeze and Roselle, and we are all involved in other things. And I'm truly thankful that everybody gives up their time. We are volunteering, but because of the passion for what they're doing and the empathy, because Maurice and Roselle do not live with these conditions, but they see the importance of it and they empathize with the experiences of people living with the conditions. And so when we talk about volunteering, you may not have to experience something in order to see that there's a need and that you can do something to help. So I just want to take this opportunity to encourage anybody who's watching or listening, whatever you find to do it well. Find a cause. You may not have to be experiencing it for yourself, but it could be somebody you know, or you could see the impact of whatever something is having on your community, on your loved ones, on your country, and say, you know what? I have some skills that I think would be very useful towards this cause. So, whatever you find to do it and do it well. And so, thank you. I want to thank you for joining us for this first episode of Behind the Diagnosis. We will be having monthly videos where we will be sharing more about these conditions and the lives of persons who are living with these conditions. We are going beyond the diagnosis. We are going beyond the name. We are going beyond the conditions. We are going to the heart of who is affected by these conditions and what we can do to improve the lives. So we hope that today's conversation was very helpful in getting to know some of the team. And we hope that you will join us on this journey of getting to know these conditions and looking beyond the diagnosis. If you're looking for more information and resources, please feel free to reach out to us via our social media pages and our email address, which will be in the description box. So until next time, thank you for being a part of the conversation, and we look forward to seeing you in episode 2 of Beyond the Diagnosis.